Hello, movie lovers. Today I'm going to do another end of month wrap up what I watched in a nutshell. I've got, I think, 15 titles here. I'll try to talk through them briefly. I did this in February. If some of my comments that I'm going to make in this video on an individual movie strikes your fancy or interest, I do have 10 to 15 minute videos that you can watch that discuss the films in a little bit more detail. I am not going to rank these films, but I am going to come up with my favorite of the month. And this was a tough decision this month. Last month was Written on the Wind, and that one just stood out to me. But I have about 4 or 5 different movies that I considered for my favorite of the month, but I ended up going with Love Affair from 1939. And this is the heyday of the Hollywood studio system, the heyday of the star system. Charles Boyer, Irene Dunne, behavioral charm through the roof. They fall in love in the first half of the film. They fall in love on shipboard, and it's a magical sequence. It's just so convincing, and as they develop, as they start as friends, they end up as in love. The second half is kind of soap opera-ish, a bit of melodrama, but Leo McCarey, the director, he was a very quiet kind of director, so we have no emotional outburst, and always the focus is on the actors, and that's what McCarey was simply brilliant at. He knew exactly what actors could do, what their strengths were. He improvised a lot, and according to make these actors comfortable with the lines, and they really deliver. I mean, this is a really enchanting film and a great black and white release from Criterion. The film looks absolutely luminous. I also watched 2 UHD movies this month. Le Cercle Rouge. This is Jean-Pierre Melville's heist film. It stars a super cool Alain Delon with a mustache, Yves Montand, Jean-Marie Volonté. It's a very distinctive world of gangsters, friendship, loyalty, betrayals. Melville at its best. This may be one of its. I think it was his biggest hit, and the UHD. This is not a very colorful movie. It's sort of, I think they called it black and white in color. But when the colors come out, even though they're not exaggerated, the colors, they're very distinctive, and the movie has such a great filmic look to it. The other UHD, in my last video that I published, and this is Daughters of Darkness, with an amazing performance by Delphine Seyrig, female vampire genre, which was all in vogue in 1971. This Blue Underground presentation is simply amazing. The colors here just stand out. Kat Ellinger wrote a book on this movie, a book on this movie alone. She, in the beginning of her, she gives a commentary in the beginning. She says she has seen it so many times, but it never looked as good as it looks here. And it has, again, Delphine Seyrig in a terrific performance. The cinematography is fantastic, a great score, and the score is on a separate disc. It's a very unique and unusual score. So I'm being sold on UHD, especially for these older films in the 1970s. These 2 movies certainly make the case for UHD, especially particularly Dolby Vision. The big surprise of the month for me was An Unsuitable Job for a Woman, starring Pippa Gard as a female private detective based on a P.D. James novel, and directed by Christopher Pettit, who didn't make too many feature films after this. And he changes a lot around from the novel. I read the novel a couple weeks before I saw the movie, but I think he does a terrific job. There are 2 key scenes in the novel that he delivers very cinematically, very suspenseful. Pippa Gard is very good. I wish they had made. There was another another novel that P.D. James. She wrote two with this female private detective, but that was never filmed. But it's a very good mystery, very unusual. It's very offbeat, but offbeat in a very positive manner. I also went on with my exploration of the films of 1972, and in the month of March, I focused in on black cinema. And I think Lady Sings the Blues really doesn't need much introduction, but Diana Ross is just amazing in playing Billie Holiday. It's a film also starring Billy D. Williams. They have excellent chemistry together. There's great songs in this movie. Diana Ross really nails the classic tunes from Billie Holiday without actually imitating her voice, but she sounds different than Diana Ross, the Diana Ross of the Springs. There is a big emphasis on Billie Holiday's drug addiction in the movie, but the songs are just triumphs for Diana Ross. Now, another film that I saw in this series was Sounder. Now, Sounder is out of print from DVD, never been on Blu-ray, starring Cicely Tyson and Paul Winfield. The story of sharecroppers in the 1930s. It was nominated for Best Picture in the Oscars that year, and but for some reason it's never made Blu-ray. Maybe because of the musical score by Taj Mahal. I don't know. It's kind of puzzling why some of these movies don't make it to Blu-ray. But 1930s sharecroppers and how they had a struggle to survive working for the man. Slavery was long over, but they were basically barely making subsistence living. And if you want to know more about what the freed slaves made, or what their lives were like following the Civil War and the end of Reconstruction, when the white farmers in Louisiana regained control, and the black people that we see in Sounder had to their choice was sharecropping and not much else. But some of them tried to emigrate to Kansas, Oklahoma. They were promised land. So they had wagon trains. This is Buck and the Preacher, and that's Sidney Poitier and Harry Belafonte. A Western, this is a DVD, another movie not out on Blu-ray, but you get to see the genesis of the struggle that black people had at the end of the freed slaves in the South, and the limited options they had. And this is a wagon train that's being beset by a group of hired guns that are hired to scare the people on the wagon train to come back to Louisiana, because the Louisiana farmers were losing their labor force. It's a very entertaining Western with lots of action. And next up in that 1972 series is Superfly, sticking it to Ron O'Neal, sticking it to the man, blaxploitation. O'Neal, a classically trained actor. You don't find that in blaxploitation too often. He's stylish, he's crafty. He wants to make one big score and get out of the game, but that's not an easy thing to do. But a very exhilarating ending. Superfly sticks it to the man. Curtis Mayfield's score. All these movies in the black cinema from 1972 had very much had a strong musical base to them, including this Jamaican movie, The Harder They Come, starring the legendary Jimmy Cliff. And this has a very documentary kind of look of what Kingston, Jamaica looked like in 1972, something that Americans would not have seen, but even Jamaicans had never seen it in 1972. They thronged to this movie because here they got to see what their normal everyday lives look like outside of the tourist attractions. The songs by Jimmy Cliff, just absolutely amazing. The second part of the movie delves into a kind of folklore folk hero gangster movie based on a true life gangster in Jamaica in 1940s. Not quite as compelling, moves quickly through it, but again, you got all these great scores. Then the last of the movies from the Black Cinema of 1972 came out of this Melvin Van Peebles set from Criterion that came out in the, I believe in December of 2021. And my favorite of this was the 1972 Don't Play Us Cheap. That's Esther Rolle from Good Times, who is in the cast of this. And this is a filmization of a Broadway play that Melvin Van Peebles wrote. It played on Broadway for about 6 months. They actually filmed this before they went to Broadway. The songs are absolutely amazing. I mean, they're just so well sung. The actors, the performances, it's very stagey in the sense of a musical, as musicals go, but again, very joyous and very unlike the other films in the Melvin Van Peebles set. And then I finished off the last 3 movies in the Claude Chabrol set, Lies and Deceit. And and the first of the remaining 3 was Madame Bovary, and this stars Isabelle Huppert as Emma Bovary, and she is a magnificent performance. It's an odd movie for Claude Chabrol, adopting a great classic of literature. Emma, I read the book a couple times and never really understood Emma Bovary, but Isabelle Huppert makes her really come alive, and it really surprised me. This one was another one of the big surprises of the month, because I went in there thinking, oh my gosh, you know, it's going to be it's going to be a slog, but it wasn't. It's a very entertaining movie. Then we get Betty, and that's Marie Trintignant on the cover. Stephanie Audran also in this film, and this is a film from a George Simenon novel, and and it is a film that's more probably familiar to Claude Chabrol fans, in that it is a kind of typical psychological power struggle between, in this case, a very subtle power struggle. Again, we have the element of betrayal. And Trintignant is just absolutely magnificent as Betty. She's a very complex character. We don't really know what she's up to, and it really is one of Claude Chabrol. And Trintignant had a very tragic end. If you remember, she was beaten to death by her rock star boyfriend. I guess about 10 years after this film, but she's going to be remembered forever for her performance here in Claude Chabrol's Betty. And the final film in this set, Lies and Deceit, from Claude Chabrol's Torment, and this is one of Chabrol's strangest movies, and it seems uneven. It doesn't seem exactly right, and it's a movie that really stuck in my mind. I had seen this a couple times before, and it's a kind of haunting movie. And it's based on Henri-Georges Clouzot's unfinished movie, which is called L'Enfer, and Torment is mostly known as L'Enfer. For some reason, Arrow Video, and this is Arrow Set, chose to use Torment as the title. And it's a story about jealousy that leads to madness. It's got a brilliant ending. I mean, it's just an amazing ending. And as with all these, all 5 movies in this box set, you get Claude Chabrol commenting, scene-specific commentaries. And the one for Torment is really great in that how he took this screenplay. They only filmed for a couple of weeks and before everybody got sick on L'Enfer, including Clouzot. And Chabrol talks about how he changed and why he made the changes that he made. So I don't know how to even recommend this film, because it's so one of a kind. It's so odd. But I'm sure glad that it's a different film than Clouseau would have made, to be sure, because there is a documentary out that shows some of the footage that Clouseau used. This is a Culture Brawl movie, however. Last month was a Douglas Sirk favorite, Written on the Wind. Kino released a double feature from two Douglas Sirk films from Germany in the 1930s, 35 and 36. The Girl from the Marsh. Croft is a kind of rural, romantic, it's somewhat comic, but the other film, The Final Chord, is really, this is Douglas Sirk as he was in Hollywood in the late 50s. I mean, this is melodrama to the max. I really enjoyed the Final Chord. I just, it almost made my favorite film of the month, but I didn't think doing Douglas Sirk twice in a row probably isn't very fair to all these other films. I'm in a Douglas Sirk mood, I guess. I do love his brand of melodrama, to be sure, and this has some outrageous sequences, but it is such a beautiful film. One of the great uses of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, and there's a lot of symphonic music in this film, and live performances at the Berlin Philharmonia. And just a great kind of soap opera-ish movie, and very surprising. And it was a big hit in Germany, and actually did play in America in big cities that had German populations. Last, but definitely not least, Jimmy Stewart in The Flight of the Phoenix, directed by Robert Aldridge. One of his men at war with each other, the male ego, in a hostile environment. A cast of about 10 people 10 men whose plane has crashed in the desert. How are they going to survive? What should they do? A School of Hard Knocks is represented. Going by the book is represented. But it's this guy here, Hardy Kruger, in an absolutely great performance, who figures it all out. The computer nerd of the future, with it, walking around with a slide rule. And Jimmy Stewart, he can't believe it. This guy, the plan that he comes up with couldn't possibly work, but it was their only means of survival. It beautifully filmed, desert locations, actually not in the deserts of North Africa where it's set. I think they filmed in Arizona and California. But it's one of Robert Aldridge's most underrated films, and a welcome addition to the Criterion Collection. Okay, so that'll about wrap up my March video titles. Again, if any of this interests you, any title interests you, you can see one of my videos for a little bit more in-depth discussion. In April, I'm going to continue on with my 1972 project. In April, I'm going to talk about horror movies. Not my cup of tea, but I think I've picked out 5 or 6 of them that look pretty interesting, and hopefully I'll make some good videos of them. Okay, thanks a lot for everybody who managed to listen to me. I do appreciate it. Comments are welcome. Take care.